Hi everyone, I'm Soya Filias from CERIC. Welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of all the CERIC team, thank you for being so many with us today. We're so pleased to see the community being supportive and coming together with more than 3,200 people who have registered for this series. So you are all in a good company today. Now, needless to say that we are all experiencing drastic changes in our life right now, and we hope that the career development community, our colleagues, and our partner association for all across the country are healthy, safe, and okay during this turbulent time. We'll go through it together as a community, and we at CERIC will continue as much as we can to provide you with remote learning opportunities like this webinar series. And actually, at the end of the webinar series, we would like to ask you a few additional questions in a webinar survey in order for us to better understand what your learning needs are right now and how we can best support you. So for those of you who will be live with us this Thursday for the webinar number 3 and on the next Thursday for the check-in, you will have the survey pop up on your screen at the end of the session. For those who won't be live with us on those days, you will all receive an email at the end of the series with the link to the short survey. So please all take a few minutes and share your answer with us. We will really like to hear from you. Now, before starting, let me share with you some housekeeping notes. If during today's webinar, if you have any questions or any comments, you can enter them at any point in the question box you see on your screen. You will have a longer Q&A session with Shirley, and she will respond to them toward the end of the webinar. Now, as you can imagine, we are all likely doing this webinar series and the new work from home scenario, and we hope that we will all have a good internet connection today. But in any case, be reassured that we will send you the recording of today's webinar later today along with the Shirley slides. Now, let me introduce you to our presenter, Shirley. Shirley Deloyer is a career coach and the founder of Bright Future Solutions. Shirley has a master's degree in education and she's certified with the International Coach Federation. She is a master coach and trainer of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy and a master coach of the timeline therapy and NLP coaching. We're pleased to have Shirley live with us every day until Thursday to bring her career coach perspective and experience using mindset tools to help you manage your mental, emotional well-being during this period. So I will now leave Shirley to start her presentation. Over to you, Shirley.
Thank you so much, Cyril. I am really happy to be here. And I just want to take a second to thank everybody who has registered, whether you're watching live with me now. If you were able to get in, thank you for showing up and being here. And for those of you watching the replay later, I know that there were a lot of you that registered, and I'm very, very grateful. So thank you for being here. Thank you for carving out time amongst all of the craziness and the uncertainty that's going on in the world right now. So I want to make sure that I honor your time, that we make the most out of your time, and make sure that your questions are answered. So we're definitely going to make time for that each day. And don't worry if your questions don't get answered. I will make sure that, that you have an opportunity to get all of the information that you're looking for. I want to start off by saying we're talking today about thriving through chaos, and it's all about managing your mental and emotional well-being and helping your clients do the same. So whether you are here more for yourself, to help yourself through this time, or whether you showed up to get some tools and learn some new strategies to use with your clients or your students, I know people are coming from both of those angles. So I want to start off by saying that everything we cover in this webinar series directly applies to you as a practitioner, but you in your life, whether it's your work, your relationships, your health, your finances, whatever area of your life, it applies to you first, and then also applies to your work with clients. So growth and development always starts with self. And by applying these skills, you'll be able to manage your own mental and emotional well-being. You'll be able to find some new opportunities. You'll be able to maintain your momentum, maintain your focus, and come out of this experience and this time of uncertainty that we're in, come out of this time on top, and you'll also be able to help your clients do the same. The biggest thing to keep in mind is whenever you're learning new tools to use with your clients, your students, or whoever it is you're working with, it always starts with self-development. So you'll be diving into your own mental and emotional well-being. You'll be diving into your own strategies and your own focus and your own ideas. And then once you try it on and implement it for yourself, then you can, from integrity, use it with your clients and teach it to other people as well. And I've also created a workbook to go along with this training. And you can download it and access it through this link. So Serial will go ahead and put the link into the chat box for you, and you can follow this link, enter your email address, and the workbook will get sent directly to your email for you to download. I want everybody to go ahead and do that now. And that allows you to have copies of the images and the models and the frameworks that I'm taking you through. There's also some questions in there for you to dive in deeper and apply everything that I'm talking about into your own work, your own life, and fully implement. We are going to be doing Q&A at the end of every one of these sessions, and again next week on Thursday in the follow-up session. So I'm going to do my best to answer all of the questions. Please go ahead and put them into the chat box as they come up and as you think of them, and I will address them in the Q&A at the end. Anything that doesn't get addressed throughout the presentation, I will address at the end, and if I don't get to it, because there are a lot of you, there is definitely an opportunity for us to dive in deeper together. So just rest assured that I will make sure you have everything that you need. Okay, so let's take a look. For those of you who want to know my credentials and all that jazz that goes along with it, you can go ahead and read this slide. Otherwise, I'm not going to bore you with it. Instead, I'm going to tell you why me. Why am I the one to be here talking with you about thriving and optimizing your mental and emotional well-being and creating massive impact with your clients? So I used to be a high school teacher, and I lasted in the public education system for about 3.5 years before knowing that it was not what I wanted, not working necessarily for me, and that I wanted to do something differently. So I knew that there was pieces of education that I loved, and there was pieces that didn't work for me. What I did love was having meaningful conversations with students, being able to have deeper conversations, motivating them and inspiring them to do something bigger, and having those more meaningful moments. And so what I ended up doing was transitioning into creating my own coaching practice and maintaining those aspects of my teaching career that I love the most. Being able to have meaningful conversations, provide guidance, dig deeper, and being able to do it in more of my own way, that where I felt like I could create a bigger impact because I was in control of it. So I started coaching, and then I later discovered the world of NLP. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically a fancy, complicated name for a set of tools that allow us to dig deeper into communication, leadership development, team building, mindset, and essentially uncovering the root cause of whatever problems are going on so that we can solve them from the root instead of just superficially. I ended up in my first 4 days of NLP training, just the first 4 out of many trainings that I've done, learning more about how to help people and how to guide people and how to create transformation than I did in all of my many, many, many years of formal education. And so I felt like I had an opportunity, but also an obligation to be able to provide a lot of this same information and tools and resources to the people who are out there working with students, working with clients, and wanting to create the same level of impact with their clients. So in my practice, I help both individuals and organizations to access their unlimited potential, connect with their purpose and the impact that they're here to create, and align their life and work with their own values. That's what I love doing. It's what lights me up. It's what I feel called to do through my work. And the reason why I'm doing this webinar series and the why behind all of my work is that I believe everyone has unlimited potential and the ability to create massive impact through their work. And so because I know this, I believe that it's my responsibility to show up and show people how this is possible. So that's everything in this webinar series. That's what this is about. It's about how to help people see and believe in the opportunities for themselves and to implement it into their work and into their life as a whole. So in order to apply this directly to you and your individual situations, I'd love for you to go ahead and answer this poll question and just let me know what type of organization that you are working for and what types of organizations you're working within. So just go ahead and you should have the poll question on your screen. If you can let me know, do you work in a post-secondary institution, then just answer A. If you work in a nonprofit organization, it'd be B. C is for provincial employment centers. And again, if you just choose whichever option is most applicable to you.
Shelly, this is Yi speaking.
Yes.
I have the poll results. We have 16% of people selected post-secondary institution, 52% select nonprofit organization,
Okay.
27% select provincial employment center, and 5% for private independent practice.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, that's good to know, and such interesting information. I love seeing where people are coming from. So thank you, everybody. We've got the highest percentage in the nonprofit sector. So that is good to know. And I hope you guys are being able to get all of the resources you need to help yourself and help your clients through this. Okay, thanks, Yi. Okay, so today's Mastering Your Mindset. Tomorrow at the same time, same place is day 2, and it's all about discovering your unique opportunities and taking a look at what's showing up for you specifically during this time. And then day 3 on Thursday is all about maintaining your momentum and best practices for coming through this situation. Okay, so let's dive into mastering your mindset. Now, I want to start off by saying that everybody is experiencing their own responses and their own emotions to the situation that we're in right now. Different people have different responses, different reactions, and I'm seeing a whole wide range of reactions and responses coming out of this current situation. And however you are feeling right now and however you're responding to what's going on around you, I want you to know that it is completely valid. I'm seeing a lot of people responding out of a place of love and compassion and empathy. I'm seeing a lot of people reaching out and helping each other, helping their neighbors, helping their communities, being really grateful for the help and support that we're getting through this time, and for people who are out there on the front lines and making a difference. So I'm seeing a lot of these responses out of love. I'm also seeing a lot of responses out of fear. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are angry, who are judging, who are blaming, whether it's blaming responses for the government, or are blaming someone or something for what's going on. So everything seems to come out of these two emotions. We've got responses out of love, and we've got responses out of fear. And wherever you're at, I just want to make it really clear that there is no wrong emotions. There's no wrong way to be or wrong way to feel right now. And every response and every emotion you're experiencing is completely valid. Ultimately, I want you to be able to navigate your emotions so that you can feel and respond however is most appropriate to you. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And so that being said, I want to know how you are doing. So we're just going to do one more poll. And I want you to be completely honest, knowing that there is no wrong answer and there's no bad emotions, there's no bad way of feeling, no bad way of being, there's nothing wrong with any of this. So just be completely honest with me and completely honest with yourself and let me know, how are you doing right now? A, you're doing great. You are thriving through this time. You know, you're the type of person who was meant for this. You're doing really well. And, you know, everything's good. Give it an A. B is I'm doing fairly well. Overall, managing okay. And you know, everything's going okay. C is you're starting to struggle. And that's okay too. If things are, you know, starting to get difficult, you're wondering how long this is going to last, you know, things are a little bit harder than usual, give it a C. And D is I'm having a really hard time. So let me know where you're at, what you're experiencing right now. And again, just remember, there's no wrong answers. I just want you all to be totally honest with yourselves. If you haven't submitted yet, please go ahead and do that now. I also know that there are a little bit of tech issues, so I think this is a product of having a lot of people online, but also just these programs and the internet in general is being severely overused everywhere right now. So bear with us if you're experiencing any tech issues on your end or our end as well.
Shelly, this is Yi speaking. We have the results ready. So we have 9% saying I'm doing great, 55% saying I'm doing fairly well, 32% saying I'm starting to struggle, and 4% says I'm having a real hard time.
Thank you, Yi. Okay, and thank you, everybody. The vast majority of you are in the middle, in between I'm doing fairly well and I'm starting to struggle. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for your honesty. And just know that wherever you're at, whatever you're experiencing right now, it's like a snapshot in time, right? Our emotions are never completely stable and the same on an ongoing basis. If you're in a human body, your emotions fluctuate. They go up and down, and that's completely normal. So this is totally a snapshot in time, but I want you to know that wherever you're at right now, and it may be different than where you're at in an hour from now and tomorrow or tonight, wherever you're at, it's a really good idea to just stop and ground yourself. So put your feet flat on the floor, feel the chair supporting your legs and your back, and allow yourself to take a nice deep breath. And so this might sound simplistic because of course we breathe, but I want you just to remember how important remembering to breathe actually is. Because in times of stress and struggle, when our bodies go into a flight or fight response, we actually will constrict our breath and hold our breath when what we really need to do is oxygenate our bodies and our minds. So take a nice big breath. You can do it with me. We're going to breathe in and out. And just allow yourself to remember to do that on an ongoing basis. I want you to understand that right now, we have a heightened sensitivity to the whole spectrum of emotions. And during uncertain times, especially for empathic people and highly sensitive individuals, your emotions are going to be heightened. They're going to, you're going to be feeling things more than you might be used to. So what I really want you to do is avoid bypassing your emotions. And what I mean by that is we want to avoid sweeping things under the rug or pushing your emotions down, avoiding them or pretending they're not there. There tends to be a tendency out there, and I'm seeing this showing up a lot in the coaching space and counseling space, and people really want to help. And there's a lot of people out there saying, just think positively. If you're scared right now, or you're in worry, or you're in fear, or you're angry, or whatever you're feeling, I want you to just think positively. And I want you to be aware of the danger of that advice, because telling people just to think positively is essentially telling them that the emotion that you're in and what you're feeling right now doesn't matter, and it isn't legitimate, it isn't valid, so you should just stop that and you should just think positively instead. And that's actually a really dangerous strategy to use and advice to be given, because it encourages spiritual bypassing. If you haven't heard of spiritual bypassing before, just make note of that, and you can go and Google it after. But it's essentially trying to put on a smile, put on a positive face, and just think positively and ignore everything else that your body is telling you. But in reality, your body, which is where all of your emotions live, it's the domain of all of your emotions, is very smart, and it has a lot to tell you. And you can think of your body as a lighthouse. It is guiding you on where to look and what to look at. So when you are feeling different emotions in your body, it is an indicator for you to look inwards, to lean into the emotions that you're feeling and get curious about what they represent. Please avoid bypassing your emotions and trying to just stuff them under the rug or hide them in a corner, cover them up with anything else. Instead, I want you to lean into them. I want you to acknowledge where they're at, where you are at, and what those emotions are all about. And then from there, then we can move through them. So we're not avoiding them, we're not pretending they don't exist. We are consciously choosing to move through the emotions instead. And that's a much healthier way of doing things. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. I want you to notice how there's a wall to your right, I think I'm pointing the right way for you, and the wall to your left. On the wall to your right, this is your towards wall. And the wall to your left is your away from wall. So on your away from wall, just look over to your left. And I want you to imagine that up on that space, up on that wall, are all the things that you're moving away from. It's all the things that you don't like, all the things that you don't want in your life, everything that holds you down, everything that holds you back, everything that you want to either get away from or move away from is up on that wall to your left. Now, for most people, this includes things like poverty or money issues, insecurity, lack of confidence, fear, negative relationships or toxic relationships, toxic workplaces, everything that just keeps people stuck. It's mental illness, it's physical illness, and it's everything that it's the problems that people come to us with, right? And it's the problems that you can acknowledge or can be aware of in your life. And then on the other side of the wall, on the opposite wall, we have the towards space. And in this space, over to your right, is everything that you want more of in your life. It's everything you're going towards. It's everything that brings you up. It's everything that feels good. It's everything you want more of. Right? So over on your towards wall, you may have financial freedom, independence, confidence, healthy relationships, physical health, mental health, more money, more time, quality time. You might have travel up on that wall, right? You can think of your right wall as like a living, breathing vision board. And so what happens is when I work with clients, they tend to be really good at describing the away from wall for me. They will come in and they can tell me all the things that are wrong, all the things they don't want in their life, everybody who's bringing them down, everything they want to change, and they can paint a very clear picture of what that away from wall looks like. However, over on the right wall, when I then get them to tell me, what do you want instead? This is where things get tricky. We are programmed to focus on and to think about all of the things that aren't working for us, right? We naturally think about and complain about what's not working. But then getting clear on solutions, thinking about what we want instead, picturing the desired outcome, that's what gets a lot trickier. So that's what we need to practice more of. I want you to consider the fact that you have, and we all have, 90,000 thoughts every single day. That's a lot of thoughts. Now, obviously, we are not aware of, we're not conscious of 90,000 thoughts in any given day. That would be complete information overload, and our systems would completely melt down. But that's what's happening unconsciously. Behind the scenes, we are having 90,000 thoughts come in and flow out every single day. So take a look and just give yourself an idea of how many of those thoughts are focused on your away from wall and how many are on your towards wall. And now you can practice actually turning your back. And I want you to do this physically. If you could see me right now, you would see that I am turning my back to that left wall and I am staring full face on to that towards wall. I'm staring at where I want to go. I'm looking at the things that I want to achieve. I'm imagining that desired outcome for myself, right? Now, why is this important? Well, as this quote from Buddha reminds us, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make our world. Now, our focus, whether we are focusing on our away from wall and our towards wall, is all about our thoughts. Our focus is defined by the thoughts and the beliefs that we are focusing on. So with those thoughts, we're creating our world. And our thoughts are also directly linked to our emotions. And here's how it works. We actually start with a thought first. And a thought enters our mind, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, right? You're not necessarily going to be aware of them all. But your thoughts come in, and those thoughts then create an emotion in your body. So if you think a positive thought, you then feel positive emotions, and those emotions spread through all of the cells in your body through chemicals called neurotransmitters. Also, those emotions then reinforce new thoughts, and it becomes a perpetual cycle. So when you think a positive thought, you bathe your body in positive emotions, which then help you create new positive thoughts, which create new positive emotions, and this just keeps going. However, when you think a negative thought, that creates a negative emotion, such as fear or anger or sadness or guilt, that you then spread throughout your entire body, which creates more negative thoughts, which creates more negative emotions. Right? So our thoughts are creating our emotions. Our thoughts are directly impacting our emotions, which then create new thoughts, and the cycle just keeps going. This is why once you feel really good, it's easier to keep feeling that way. This is also why you may have a negative moment or a bad moment in the morning, and you will then allow that moment to turn into an entire bad day, and it sticks with you because you keep reinforcing the thoughts and the emotions over and over and over again. Now, what I really want you to take away from this is you have the power to change the cycle at any given moment. You can change your focus to look at that towards wall and get really clear, crystal clear on something that you want to focus on and feel and think instead, and then have that thought create new emotions, so that you're allowing yourself to feel how you want to feel instead of sort of being victim to your emotions. And this also reminds me of an Einstein quote. I quote Einstein all the time. I'm pretty sure he's in every single presentation I do in some form or another. To stay away from negative people because they have a problem for every solution, right? So once we get into that problem mindset, it just perpetuates and creates more of the same. But when you're in that solution mindset, the same thing happens. You can create more of the same solutions and more positivity. So this brings me to the idea of emotion intention setting. Now, this is an exercise that we're going to do, and this is in your workbook as well. And emotion intention setting has to do with creating intentions, setting intentions for 3 emotions of how you want to be on any given day. Now, the key word here, and I bolded it and underlined it, the key word is be. This is not intentions for what you're going to do. Okay? We're not setting goals for what you're going to achieve or how you're going to be productive or what you're going to get done in a day. This is not a to-do list. Intentions for being are all about the emotions and the states that you want to show up as in that given day. So 3 intentions for being, I'm going to give you some examples. Today, I am choosing to be calm, present, and focused. That's who I want to show up as today. Or maybe today I'm choosing to be patient, loving, and supportive. I would encourage you to add this to your morning routine. And if you don't have a morning routine, now we can start one. So your intentions for being help you navigate who you're going to show up as on any given day, who you are becoming on that day, or who you are choosing to be, so that you can manage your world, your mental and emotional world, your physical world, and create the day that you want to have. And tomorrow, when you wake up and you set your 3 intentions for yourself, they may be the same 3 intentions, or they may be different. It's whatever you decide you need on any given day. So I want you to go ahead and set your 3 intentions for who you're going to be today and who you're going to be on any given day. You come back to and set a reminder for yourself. So I want you to write them down and then remind yourself throughout the day to come back to these states. When you get pulled off your path, pulled off of your intentions, be gentle with yourself and just remind yourself to come back to them, because that's what you've intended for yourself, and that's the most important thing. Not necessarily what other people tell you, but what you intend for yourself. This also helps us to navigate uncertainty. We are programmed as a species, as human beings, we are programmed from an evolutionary perspective to avoid uncertainty and to stick with what we know. Because the ultimate belief and the ultimate understanding here is we are programmed to survive. As human beings, from an evolutionary perspective, we are not programmed to thrive. Thriving was never part of the deal. It's survival, right? And this is true for all species, all beings. And so when you're programmed to survive, what that means is if you've survived it in the past, keep doing it, because you will likely survive it in the future. Even if you were miserable, even if you hated every minute of it, even if it's not the reality you want for yourself moving forward, if it's not the future you want, unconsciously you are programmed to keep recreating the same reality so that you can survive and you can just keep living, right? But now we are in an entirely different world than we were thousands and thousands of years ago. Now people want to thrive. And so if you want to thrive instead of just surviving, we need to do things differently. We need to show up differently. We need to break the old patterns and programs from the past so that we can create a new reality for ourselves. So knowing that we are programmed to avoid uncertainty, is really challenging right now because we are in one of the greatest times of uncertainty that most of us have ever been in our life. And yet uncertainty is all about going into the unknown. And we are programmed to think and believe that the unknown is scary and dangerous. So we have to challenge that belief. We have to lean into it differently. And one of the ways that we can do that is by imagining and creating the future that we want. Taking a look at what certainty can we create for ourselves in this time of uncertainty, right? And maybe that's how it'll come to be, or maybe it'll be different, but having some certainty to lean into right now is super important for being able to manage your emotions and your mental state. Okay, so this is bringing me into what we call the emotional guidance scales. So I want you to take a look at this picture, and it's also in your workbook for you as well. The emotional guidance scales are a spectrum of emotions making up an upward spiral and a downward spiral. But you can actually imagine the downward spiral sliding in underneath the upward spiral so that it becomes one long continuum. The upward spiral represents positive emotions and positive states, and the downward spiral are what we would typically call negative emotions or negative states. They're lower frequency. The upward spiral is higher frequency. And the reason I'm showing you this is so that you can take a look at where you've been hanging out. Where have your emotions been? And I want you to remember that your emotions have probably been a bit all over the place. I know mine have been as well. It's totally normal when we're in such unprecedented times. And it seems like our entire world has been either going through a bit of a curveball or completely turned upside down. If you have been hanging out anywhere on the downward spiral, right? Like I know I've been experiencing some worry. I've been in overwhelm sometimes. And there are times where, people are hitting fear or grief, right? And this is a big realization right now is the world is grieving. The entire planet is grieving all at the same time. And it's very unusual for us to go through this level of a situation where we can empathize and understand where people all over the planet are at, and having people all over the planet be in a similar position all at the same time. And so I want you to just recognize some of the emotions on the downward spiral where you might have been hanging out over the last little while. And again, there's no judgment. There's no bad emotions. There's nothing wrong with any of this. It's just observing where you've been at and recognizing any of the downward spiral emotions that you've been on over the past few days or couple weeks, right? Now, the emotional guidance scales have to do with abundance versus scarcity. Everything on the upward spiral helps you create an abundance mindset. And an abundance mindset is the type of mindset where you have an abundance of positivity, where you can see an abundance of opportunities and possibilities, where your emotions are supporting you instead of taking you out. And this abundance mindset is also related to mind mastery. However, the downward spiral relates to a scarcity mindset. And the scarcity mindset comes in when we are in a state of lack or not enoughness. It comes in with worry about, what if I don't have enough money? What if my job isn't secure? What if my family isn't safe? That's a scarcity mindset. And very rightfully so, there's a lot of scarcity going on all over the place right now. Now, scarcity mindset is also related to mind victimhood, where we are the victims of our thoughts and our emotions instead of having the control over them that we desire. Now, I'm not preaching this to you from any state of like, look at me, I'm over here on the abundance mindset. we all fluctuate through different emotions. I used to camp out in insecurity. And look how low that is. Number 21, insecurity is very low vibing emotion and a very low vibing state to be in. But I used to hang out there all the time, wanting to prove to other people that I was smart enough or funny enough or helpful enough, ultimately wanting to feel good enough. And that is a really low level place to be. But I'm sure many of you can relate, either by having been there yourself or by working with clients who often feel this way too. So what changed for me was first acknowledging that that's where I was, right? And being able to speak that out loud in a safe place, in a place where it's okay to do that without judgment, without criticism, but also with people who had the tools and resources to be able to help me move through it. And then once I did that, it was about choosing a higher level state to move into, right? Moving out of one place means being able to move into something new. So I needed to consciously choose what I wanted to move into instead, right? So let's say you're in a place of worry right now. If you are experiencing worry, you're on the downward spiral around level 14, then you can acknowledge that and speak that out loud in a safe place to people who aren't going to judge you, to people who are going to support you moving through it, and then move into maybe hopefulness, right? And turning yourself towards hope on that right wall and imagining what that hope looks like for you. Or maybe you'll do what I did and move into positive expectation and belief. I doubled down on emotions that went along with expecting the best. And I created positive expectations in my mind of how things would go for myself and who I would become. So right now, I encourage you to do the same. When you're in any of those downward spiral emotions, please be gentle on yourself and also recognize that you have the power to move through it and to choose where you're going to move to. Okay. So we are going to cover one more thing and then we're going to move into Q&A. And what this is talking about now is taking a look at understanding unconscious triggers, right? How many of you have been triggered by something at all in the past 2 weeks? If you're not saying yes to this, I think that you are like superhuman. We've all been triggered on some level. The entire world is being triggered right now. And by triggered, I mean something happens, someone says something, someone does something, you see something, you hear something, something happens that triggers an emotion on that downward spiral for you, that causes you to lose control on some level. You say something you regret, you lose control of your emotions, you lash out on somebody, you do something, and then you're looking back at that like, wow, that's not normally how I would respond. Well, what's happening there is unconscious triggers, unconscious stories and programs from the past are being activated by what's going on here. Now, there's two different things I want you to understand. And the first is that anxiety, for anybody who's experiencing anxiety right now, anxiety is all about fear about the future. And that fear of the future comes when we are imagining a disaster film or playing out a disaster film in our mind of what the future is going to look like. And maybe it's about something that's going to happen next week. Maybe it's about where am I going to be 6 months from now? But it's somewhere in the future. Okay? Now, the past is where our unconscious triggers come from. Those triggers come from stories and experiences from the past. So anxiety is in the future. Our triggers come from the past, but where our power is right here in the present, in the now. All of your power is here in the now. So what I want you to do is come back to the present moment to get control over your emotions and over your mental state. Whenever you feel like you're on that downward spiral and you want to move yourself into a different state or into different emotions, start by bringing yourself back to the present. Pull yourself out of the future or out of the past and come back to now. And a great way for you to do that is through this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And what that means is find 5 things that you can see right here, right now. 4 things that you can hear. And you might have to listen closely. Find 3 things that you can touch, right? I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel the chair on my legs and my back, and I can feel the keyboard beneath my fingertips. Find 2 things that you can smell and 1 thing that you can taste. And go through all of these 5, paying attention to all 5 of these states, and this brings you through your senses right back into the present moment. Bring yourself into the present, and then you can choose, where do you want to go from here? What do you want to focus on, and how do you want to feel? Okay, I have a quick challenge for you. Before tomorrow's webinar, I encourage you to DM me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you want to go, to share with me how you're implementing this material and what you've learned. Bonus points if you include a picture, and there will be prizes at the end. So I encourage you to do that however you want to reach out. Feel free and keep the conversation going. We're going to move into Q&A now. So if you haven't already asked your questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat box. I hope that you are joining me for the rest of the webinars this week and for the follow-up next week. If I don't get to your question, or if more questions come up after the fact, because who doesn't think of more stuff later? I know I do. Then I would love to chat with you further, and that will be available to you as well. So I want to make sure that you've accessed and downloaded your workbook. Please go ahead and do that if you haven't already, and then also put your chats into the chat box, and into the question box, and I am going to go there now and do my best to get through as many of them as I can. And I'll just put this up on your screen. If you want to email me, my email address is there, my website, Facebook page. I also have a Facebook community group that you can join as well. And I also have a link there that Cyril is going to put into the chat box as well for your organization to book a needs assessment call with me if you want to talk about how to implement this work or any other trainings that I do or information that I have into your workplace specifically. So you can book that 20-minute, no obligation, completely free call with me there, and I would love to talk about how you can implement more of this into your work. Okay, we're heading into the questions. Okay, so Amelia asks, what is a highly sensitive person or individual? Amelia, thank you. I talk about empathic people quite a bit, and people who are empathic are people who can feel other people's emotions. So there's a difference between empathy and being empathetic or being empathic. Those are 2 slightly different things. Having empathy means that you can put yourself into somebody else's shoes and imagine what it's like. You can imagine their emotions and what it's like to be in their shoes. But being empathic means that you take on those emotions yourself and you feel them. So I learned a few years ago that I am a very empathic person. I just didn't know that that's what that meant. And I feel other people's emotions, even if they're not actual people in front of me. So like watching TV, I will feel the emotions and take on the states of what is happening on the TV. And it tends to be fairly common in our line of work for people to be either highly sensitive or empathic. Now, for me, and the key message I want people to remember is that being highly sensitive or empathic is a superpower. right? So if you are this individual, this is not a bad thing. And I know a lot of people who have always been quite sensitive have maybe had that turned into a negative, especially as children. And it's important to remember that it's actually a super important skill and a superpower for you to hone in on. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Tara says, I'm profoundly grateful for the resources I'm lucky enough to have. Don't know that I would be doing as well if I were in different circumstances. Gratitude and empathy. Thank you, Tara. I'm super, super happy to hear that. Loretta says, how do we get away from negative people who are already there and don't leave? Loretta, this is a super important conversation to have around boundaries and being able to shield yourself from other people's stuff, right? So when we talk about empathic people, they take on other people's negativity. There's a lot of tools that I teach and guide people to use, and they're actually quite simple for shielding yourself from that energy. Just because I'm empathic doesn't mean that I want to take on the individual or the energy from certain people around me, right? Sometimes I'll say to my husband, it's some interesting conversations we have in my house, where I'll look at him and I'll say, like, are you having some anxiety right now? And he'll look at me like, yeah, how did I know? And I'll take my hands and I'll be like, here, please take it back. And I'll give it back to him because I can feel it in my body. And I'm looking around going, I don't know why this is happening. And then I realize it's actually not mine. But it's also very important not to hand off things that are yours that you really just need to work through. So being able to put a barrier up, like imagine almost like a plexiglass window or some sort of a bubble or shield around you, where any negative energies that you don't want to take on are actually bouncing off so that you're not absorbing them. And setting boundaries for yourself with how much time you are willing to spend around certain people. And you also may need to look at speaking up for yourself. I don't know if this is true for you. I would have to dive deeper. So feel free to reject this if it's not accurate. But if negative people are bringing you down, you may need to look at why you are willing to put up with that from people, and speaking your voice to say, hey, this isn't, this level of negativity isn't working for me. I'm going to remove myself from the conversation. I know that can be very uncomfortable, but it may be in your best interest. I don't really understand the concept of being, says Melissa. I'm going to be me. I don't have a problem with me. The workbook says choose 3 intentions of being, and I don't understand what that means. It seems very vague. Okay, so the way you can look at it is emotional states that you want to engage in, that you want to be bringing to the forefront. So yes, you're definitely being you, absolutely. Being the most authentic version of yourself is super important. I may say on any given day, today is going to take more patience. So today, my intention for being is patient. I have a lot of work to do. I'm working from home. My husband's working from home. My kids are here. We're all doing the best we can. Patience is going to be super important today. So that is who I'm choosing to be. The reason we focus on being is because people tend to get caught up with doing. And when we talk about setting intentions or filling in these things, they'll default to more of a to-do list. And I want you to focus more on who you're going to be, not what you're going to do. Thank you. Okay. Erin says, if we focus on our towards wall and positive thoughts or emotions intentions, then aren't we doing spiritual bypassing, which you said to avoid? Okay, so the difference here is making sure that you are acknowledging and working through the emotion that you are then moving away from. So it's almost like 2 steps. To avoid spiritual bypassing, you need to lean into the emotion, acknowledge it. There's no labeling it as good or bad. It's just being an observer of the emotion and understanding why it's showing up. And then from there, you can choose to learn from it and refocus on what you're going towards instead, that's going to move you into a positive state on the upward spiral. Okay, so we're not spiritual bypassing because we're not just pretending that that negative emotion isn't there. We're not just hiding it and covering it up. We're leaning into it to move through it and then get focused on the towards wall. I hope that helps clarify. Barbara says, are the emotions in a purposeful order within each spiral? Yes, they are. They're in that order based on the frequency that each of those emotions resonate at. So emotions can be measured and calibrated in terms of hertz, and the frequency of the emotions are different. So really low frequency emotions are at the very bottom of the downward spiral, and then high frequency emotions are at the very top. And they're there in that intended order. You can also look up scales of consciousness, has a similar scale, comes from the book Power versus Force. It's a brilliant, brilliant recommendation if you're interested in learning more about that. Okay. Keith says, can you be at different points on both spirals at the same time? Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. Thanks, Keith. Yes, you can. So I may be really worried about my parents' health, and at the same time, I might be in a state of optimism about where my business could go. Right? We have different areas of our life and different emotional states at the same time. So thank you very much. I know there's more questions here. I just heard Ye coming on, so I'm not sure.
Actually, I'm mindful of the time. I know that we have received so many questions. Thank you so much for your great engagement today. And thank you, Yi. Thank you, Shirley, for this great presentation. It was really great to hear from you and to learn some techniques to better manage our emotion. I want to tell you as well that we have people that have been signing up for your workbook that you shared. But they haven't received it yet. So I'm pretty sure that they might receive it soon. But maybe it's good if you can confirm with them when they can expect to receive it.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look. It should have been sent to you directly as soon as you signed up. If you haven't received it, you can send me an email. I'm going to take a look at my end. I did tested it earlier and it all went through. So you also may need to check your junk folder or your spam in case it got sent there. Depending on your filters, it may have ended up there by mistake. And if not, send me an email and I will make sure you get it.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you all for your engagement today. We reached the 1,000 limit of people being live with us today. So you might have experienced some technical issues time to time during today's session. Sorry about that, but don't worry. We'll be sending the recording of today's webinar in the next few hours to everyone who registered, including those who were unfortunately not able to be live with us today. And yes, we were not able to answer all the questions, but we will continue the conversation during the next few days. So make sure to be back tomorrow. And we will be back same time, same place tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time, where we will continue the conversation and learn how to develop techniques to support your clients navigate through uncertainty. So now please enjoy the rest of your day and see you all tomorrow.